Welcome to another episode of Just One More Fix. This is James. I'm all by myself in this episode. You can find us online at justonemorefix.com or on Twitter at justonemorefix. If you like us, head over to Apple Podcasts or Google Play and give us a rating and a comment. In this episode, we're going to start a new series called Safety Not Guaranteed. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Kier.
And I'm Alyssa from In Defense Of, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the one you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts and guests.
Be sure to check out all the other podcasts available at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3,
2,
1.
Welcome to Just One More Fix. Couple quick announcements. First off, HoosierCon is in 2 weeks, and we will, at least some of our cast will be there, and I will be running 2 games there. There's a Lamentations game that I'm going to run, and a Powered by the Apocalypse game called MAShed. It's about the medical units in the Korean War, the actual MASH units, similar to the show. So check those out. I think there's still spots available as of right now. So if you're interested in those 2 games, they're on Saturday at HoosierCon, and we hope to see you guys there. The second announcement is that our free preview of our Patreon continues for this month. So head over to patreon.com/justonemorefix and you can check out what we've got going on over there. So as you guys have probably noticed by now, it's just me in this episode. We had a scheduling issue and didn't get everybody together this week to record, but we did record a session of Night Witches, and that actual play should be coming to you guys pretty soon as I put it through our editing process and whatnot. So as a group, we had talked about some episode ideas, and there's a movie called Safety Not Guaranteed that me and Lacey had thought was pretty cool. And the premise of the movie is that there's a strange classified ad put in the paper, and someone responds to it, and the movie plot kind of develops from there. So here, I'm going to read you guys the classified ad to kind of give you an idea of where we come from with this. So it says, "Wanted, someone to go back in time with me. This is not a joke. You'll get paid after we get back. Must bring your own weapons. Safety not guaranteed. I have only done this once before." So I thought it was kind of a cool premise for a movie, and I thought, well, what if we built games around this idea, and either you pitched your ideas to your players as classified ads, or maybe the easier version of what we're going to do today is that if you had the adventures picked up by your players as classified ads, which I thought was kind of an interesting prospect. So each of us was going to write our own classified ad, and as I started to develop mine, I kind of really fell in love with the idea, and I didn't want to record it with everyone there because several of them will probably play in the game. I really liked some of the ideas that I was coming up with, and I decided I would develop it into an actual series of games that we would probably play. And because of that, I didn't want them all to hear it and have some spoilers, because I thought there's some new tricks that I might try and play to kind of mess with their minds a little bit. So let me first start off by reading my classified ad here. It says, "Wanted, magician with a flexible mind. Origami experience a plus but not required. Training provided. Odd jobs to be completed as needed. Payment commensurate with requests. Safety not guaranteed." So I recently just finished The Paper Magician. I'll link to the movie Safety Not Guaranteed and as well as this Paper Magician book. And the way the author kind of talked about how this magician folds paper kind of inspired me in a few ways, and which kind of created this entire thought process. When I initially thought about this idea, what the system and world that immediately jumped into my mind was the Fate Accelerated Dresden Files. So that's where a lot of this kind of comes from in terms of the way of structuring the game, but I think you could easily adapt it into lots of other systems if you think it's cool and want to use it yourself. So I mentioned before what inspired this initially was the way in the Paper Magician book, the author talks about folding papers and making sure the folds line up just right and the points line up just right. And then kind of a series of thoughts just sort of went down this rabbit hole of what if the paper was sort of like a conduit or a metaphor for space. And when you fold the paper in half, you're sort of folding a plane and doing the same thing with reality and bending space. and thereby also, eventually, once you got good enough, bending time. But all the folds had to be very precise and perfect so that you didn't create huge problems in the space-time continuum, obviously, so there'd be a lot of risk involved. So essentially, that's where a lot of this kind of got built out from. So I had this vision of a wizard that would put this classified into the paper, and as we all know, in the Dresden universe, Harry Dresden, he has his own supernatural investigation firm, or, well, business, really not really a firm, but, and kind of in that same vein where a lot of people would just look at this and kind of laugh it off, but the ones who knew to read between the lines and knew to see the hidden messages would be able to respond to it then. But our main mentor or NPC would be a wizard who is not too terribly old, but when the players would look into his eyes would have an age to them, as this wizard has mastered the process of this folding space and time. So he's traveled through time, lived several ages, but been able to slow his aging process through the magic that he had learned. However, the reason he needs the help is because he has traveled through time and bent and broken time too much to where if he continues to do it, he will begin to sort of unmake himself in some kind of a way. The idea being that reality always takes precedence, and if something violates reality too much, it will tear it apart. So in terms of mechanics, I thought that we would add an additional stress track that would be reality or time or space-time or something like that. And as the players broke reality, that it would add to that stress track and eventually pile up consequences on them. But I thought it would be interesting if you didn't exactly reveal it to them and you kept track of it as a game master, and then as time goes by and their stress track fills up and they begin to take consequences from it, that there would start to be irregularities that they would see, and maybe those around them would notice things that were off, like weird moments of deja vu, or they seemed to have this stuttering, repetitive motion when they did things that could be observed, just strange oddities that would involve the passage of time and the fabric of reality. Now, the initial part of this I thought was kind of interesting, but where I started to get really inspired was if we could find a way to sort of mess with the players' minds and trip them up a little bit. So in the Paper Magician book, I'm sure everyone remembers the fortune tellers that you can fold up that open back and forth and that kind of look like a fish mouth or whatever that you fold out of paper. And the players would arrive. There would be some sort of training process with the wizard, but essentially whatever introduction process that you put the players through to sort of introduce the mentor figure and this new type of magic, they would eventually learn to create this fortune-telling apparatus, and you could actually have the players folded up at the table. And the reason we're doing this once with one that's kind of innocuous is so that our second one doesn't seem so glaring when we have them folded up, which is really the crux of my concept here. So the initial one they will fold up and it will make that fortune-telling box, and everyone will make their own. It's all well and good. And then they will tell each other's fortunes with them. And part of the idea would be that it would give the players some authorship over the story, in that they could tell someone else's fortune, but they couldn't ever actually know their own, because it would be fatal, or not necessarily fatal, but it would cause problems with reality or the person's psyche if they actually knew their own fortune. And knowing your own future would cause tragedies and problems to befall you, essentially. So I like the interesting dynamic of the players around the table knowing one another's fortune in some sort of symbolic way, to where maybe it's not exact events, but we can foretell certain things through symbolism and keeping things vague enough that we can roleplay towards them. So what I thought I would have do is have each of the players sort of write a couple, maybe a paragraph, maybe two, depending on how inclined they are that way, of certain high points of the visions that they would see, and give that to the game master to be able to use, and in conjunction with that player be able to roleplay certain scenes or aspects of the game towards those fortunes. Now, the initial part of this is to just sort of set them at ease when you get paper out to fold things up and get them used to the fact that that's going to be part of the game so that their alarm bells don't go off immediately the first time you get out some paper for them all to fold up. In addition to this fortune-telling thing, I could envision several exercises happening with the mentor figure, teaching them to fold paper, to envision as space, as the sheet of paper representing the plane of reality, folding and teleporting and bringing things to them, or doing whatever tasks it is that he sets before them to train. Where I think things really begin to get interesting is when we introduce the second piece, which is where we would have them fold a butterfly. And there's a 3-minute origami butterfly video on YouTube that I will link to show it to you guys. It's pretty simple, straightforward. It takes about 3 minutes in the video to fold, and it looks to be very easy. But I like the idea of the butterfly effect in that kind of like a chaos magic thing where when a butterfly flaps its wings and a hurricane starts somewhere else because of events that happen secondary to the butterfly's wings. Now, this butterfly is going to show up periodically throughout the what I'm envisioning is a mid-length game, so a 6 to 10 session game. So it will show up in various places that the players go to, jobs that they have to do, places they have to go, and this will essentially be the same piece of folded paper that the players made in the first game. So essentially, I'm envisioning this butterfly functioning as kind of an anchor to link all these events together that the players are going to roleplay through. So while it will seem like there is multiple butterflies, there will only actually be one. Once the players have folded a butterfly, I would have them open it up, and on the inside or even on the outside of it somewhere, have them write something on it so that they can mark it as theirs. And I would do this by, in the same way that they wrote things on the fortune teller, it sort of imbues it with their own energy, and I would use that same concept to make it seem normal, a normal part of the game, that they're going to write it on the butterfly as well. Now, once you have that is, in my mind, where the fun really starts to begin. So like I said, we're going to have this simple piece of folded paper appear through several times, and adventures that these characters will go through. Actually, as I sit here and think about it, I think it actually might even be more fun if you fold one beforehand and have the mentor figure send the players somewhere to go recover it as sort of like one of their jobs. Something that's not terribly dangerous, but is definitely not easy. Maybe it takes more craftiness and poses little physical danger, but will take them somewhere where it will challenge them at a mental and social level to sneak in and steal it, or coerce someone into giving it to them, or even buying it, if that's whatever you sort of have in mind for that. But in them recovering it, it would be the original butterfly that they will be folding, but just not knowing that. So I've put a lot of focus into this butterfly, and one of the cool things that I thought you might be able to do if you have a small amount of experience with a computer, you could scan this, or you would unfold your butterfly, and scan the side that had the handwriting on it. And then you would be able to reprint it and trace whatever it was that they wrote on there. And I thought if you really wanted to get crafty and use a photo editor, whether that's Adobe Photoshop or GIMP or something like that, you could have them write it with a Sharpie. Then when it's scanned, you could pull the color out of it and sort of bleach out whatever it was they wrote on there, and then you could trace it with the exact same Sharpie. And the idea being is that you would have a second one, and when they recovered the butterfly again and again and again, they could tear it up, they could destroy it, but you would always have the ability to reproduce it, and you would have the ability to reproduce an exact copy of it. And in fact, you could continue to add more and more things to it. So perhaps there would be a way for them to realize there are 4 things written on the butterfly this time, even though we've only encountered the butterfly 3 times, and be able to play with the idea of time being a non-linear thing, each time they encounter it, is this the butterfly from the future, or is it one from the past? And how does it fit in the timeline of everything? So I know that's kind of a lot to consume all at once, and it's just me sitting here sort of brainstorming things as I kind of go through this, but I thought there was a lot of potential there, and I also like the idea of being able to mess with your players in a sort of real world kind of a way, as opposed to just the game world. So having them question the fact that they've torn this butterfly up several times already, but yet it still keeps coming back, sort of the magic of it. I think there's a lot of potential to develop from there. I may develop things further from there. I'm not really sure where it will go. I also know that whenever we talk about building games, we always talk about building games with an ending. I haven't really came up with one that I was sure that I would use, but I think there's a couple possibilities. One of which being that you could use the mentor as the villain in the end and offer the players a hard choice that perhaps he has traveled too much and maybe his mind is broken and he is trying to ascend to some higher plane that might break the world, or he's just going to unmake the world in what he's doing. There's a lot of easy potential there, especially if you're used to running games that are in that Dresden Files kind of a vein. There's also the possibility that he is in fact just a good guy and he's broken reality too many times and needs to develop some more people that can help him to fight off some larger evil that he only has one more chance at fighting without sort of undoing his being. Well, I think that encompasses most of it. I guess I just really like the idea of being able to try and toy with the players at a meta level about physically tearing something up that would continue to sort of make its way back into the game and into the physical game space. They could identify individually because of things they had done and sort of playing with that sense of wonder as to how it happened, at least in the initial part of it. And then once the players have gotten used to it, then I think you would just naturally back off of it. And once that moment of wonder is gone, hopefully you've built up enough of a strong story and interest in the game prior to that to where the game could continue to some hopefully awesome conclusion. Well, I think that'll do it for us this week. Realize this is a short one, but we still wanted to get something out to you guys. And normally we would bounce these ideas off of each other around the table and it would develop into something larger. But this one I think I am going to develop as a game for our table, so I didn't really want to share it with them too much. I guess I should probably add a disclaimer at the beginning of this that if they may play in the game, they probably shouldn't listen. Let me know what you guys think. Have you found a way to trick your players in the actual physical play space with things that you've done, and how have you done that? Because I think those are really cool things and tricks that you can share to really build some interest and excitement in your games and sort of mess with your players' minds a little bit. So if you found a way to do that in any way, hit us up on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix, or you can email me at james@JustOneMoreFix, and let us know how you've warped your players' minds. So, quick Gun and Geek promo. Game Life Balance, episode 49. Is Super Metroid a perfect game? Cody poses the question and John tries to come up with the answers as they review the classic Nintendo title on the Super NES Classic 24 years after it was first released, which I gotta say, I think Metroid is better than Super Metroid, but both of them are awesome games. So check them out on Game Life Balance, episode 49. And I think that'll do it for us this week, so hopefully we will see you guys at HoocherCon. If not, maybe we will catch you guys at Gen Con. And don't forget to check out our month-long preview of our Patreon at patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at Incompetech.com. You can support us at patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix or follow us on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix.